Hey guys, Braden here with Spring Fever Custom Calls. This week we're going to talk about turkey call acoustics. Alright, so this week's episode, we've been getting a lot of questions, phone calls, emails, messages on social media about call sounds and what we would prefer. You know, if somebody's ordering a call, they may say, what would you prefer? And they're asking me, you know, in terms of whether they choose a walnut call or if they should choose a cherry call, you know, whatever wood type, that, you know, they ask what we recommend. And that's really a very hard question to answer, because sound and what you think sounds great changes. I mean, I think everybody has an idea in their head of what they think sounds good, but it's always a little bit different from person to person. Even between, you know, me and Dad building these calls, a call that he may think sounds great, I come over and I'll try it out and I say, it's okay. But he thinks it's awesome, and vice versa. So that's really a hard question to answer. And we want to talk about today, you know, what changes that and what makes the difference along through your calling. Basically, if we get down to it, in terms of turkey calls are basically a musical instrument. Okay, now it may not sound like music to us. It definitely don't sound like music to whoever else is in the room and we're driving nuts. But it comes down to, it's a musical instrument, and we're trying to produce a sound that obviously replicates a realistic turkey. Now, it's music to their ears, right? We want it to sound good to them. So when we get down to it, turkey calls, no matter what style it is, it basically breaks down to a musical instrument. And today we're going to talk about how playing that and what that instrument's made out of, you know, changes and deciphers like what that turkey call is going to sound like. So when we look at this, you know, one of the most common questions I get asked at a show is, you know, hey, this call sounds good in here, but what does it sound like outside? And that's a good question. Now, the thing is depending on what kind of area you're in, the acoustics change. You know, auditoriums, you know, places where performances are held, you know, those are designed a certain way to get a certain acoustic sound. So depending on what area you're in, it's going to change that. So for example, today we're in this room and the acoustics are going to change because the sound has got a lot smaller area to bounce off of, and that sound's going to be different versus if we walk outside and run a call where it's just this vast wide open area. There's, you know, unless you got trees or another building close by, what that sound's bouncing off of, it's going to make it sound different than what it does inside. Now, as call makers, we have a certain sound in mind that we're trying to achieve. And here at Spring Fever, you know, we run basically 5 different domestic woods constantly. I mean, cedar, cherry, walnut, maple, I'm forgetting one, ash is the other big one. Now, those, when we design a call, we make it out of all 5 of those species, and then we make it, and then when we test it, we start weeding out which ones sound good, which ones sound bad. It is actually very difficult to get a turkey call to sound the same out of all 5 woods, and they don't. But it's also very hard to just get one that sounds good in all species. If you notice, a lot of call makers, if you jump around and you're, you know, as you're shopping, a lot of call makers, if they have a call, it's usually only made out of that specific wood. And they may only have, you know, one style pot call, and it's made out of that one style wood, because they know that wood species sounds right with their call dimensions to achieve the sound they want to achieve. So when we look at this, that's the biggest factor in how your acoustic sound comes out of your turkey call. Wood species is the number one factor, okay? And I'm going to show that to you here today. First, we'll look at some box calls. So these, if I grab 2 of these calls, this is an all cherry call. this is our home wrecker half moon, and this is our home wrecker half moon cedar. Now, if we look at these two calls and we play this is a cherry call. Now, I want you to listen to the difference in the sound. These dimensions are exactly the same. This call was designed with a specific, tone in mind. We achieved that, and then when we make it out of the different species, it alters it just a little bit. I don't want every turkey call to sound the same. I want them all to be a little bit different. No hen, not every hen sounds exactly the same, but I want to show you the difference in this sound. So this is a cherry one. Okay. Now, that one's got a pretty high front end. It's pretty pitchy. It's got a pretty high note on it. Now let's check out this cedar call. Okay. Now you can tell the difference in those two with the cedar. Same call, same dimensions, same everything. The only thing that's changed here is this is cedar. That one's cherry. Now, this one has a lot duller sound, a lot more rasp in it compared to the cherry. Again, cedar. It's got more of that yawp to it, more of that rasp compared. A lot higher pitch. So those two calls, they're same call, different wood species, and you've got two different sounds, okay? So when somebody asks and they say, well, what do you prefer? It's really hard for me to decide because what I think sounds good may be different from what that individual actually sounds good. Another prime example of this in the box are our two boxes here. These are our Smooth Snooze series, and this one here, these are both the same box. You can see that, the exact same thing. The only thing we change, here we got a purple heart lid, here we got a cherry lid. Now, other than that, these calls are identical. So here's one with the purple heart lid. Okay? Now, if we take that and then we compare it to that same call with the cherry lid, so again, it's got that cherry has that classic sweet high end to it and then rolls off pretty well. Where the purple heart there is a little bit duller, a little bit more rasp though in it compared to that cherry lid. So that's the exact same call, two different lids, you got different sounds, okay? Now the same thing is going to fall into place for our pot calls. Now, depending on what type of wood it is going to change how that pot call sounds. So if I grab, this call's laying here, if I grab a cherry call and I grab a striker, so this one is cherry, and I'm not even going to try to make a call, I just want to show the difference in the actual sound by just dragging the striker across. Okay, now that kind of sounded like a purr, just dragging it, but if we compare that to this, I grabbed the cedar again here, you got two different pitches there, okay, completely changes the tone of that. Grab a walnut, okay, that one's pretty close to the same. So those different wood types are going to change the way your call sounds. Now, there's a couple other things that are going to affect how your call performs. If we look at, in a hunting scenario, one, we're outside, so if you really want to test what your call sounds like, you need to go outside. We mentioned that earlier. Try it out outside. Whenever we build a prototype, that's the first thing we do is we walk out, stand on the back porch or, sidewalk, and we try them out outside to see what they sound like. But also in that hunting situation, typically a hunter's got gloves on, okay? And gloves are another key factor in changing the acoustics of how that call is going to perform. Now, my hands are cold all the time, and a lot of my buddies are probably watching this video and are cracking up laughing because they make fun of me because I wear gloves almost all year round because my hands are cold. When you add that glove onto your hand, you take something, your hand is pretty rigid when you're holding that call. This is a pretty rigid contact. When you put a glove on, and as soon as you put that glove on, you're adding insulation that's pretty soft. It doesn't have as a rigid feel to it. You're going to dampen how that call performs and how the vibrations run through, that transfer from your hand and so on. So it's, you're applying that more insulation to the call, and it's going to affect how that call sounds. Now, personally, unless it's this, I can't absolutely take it, I try to call as much as I can when I'm hunting without gloves on. And a lot of the times when I'm working a turkey or whatever, I don't have gloves on and my hands are kind of, exposed. And if I know that a gobbler, starting to come or whatever, then I might slip on my gloves, or I put on, face paint or whatever and try to, darken up my hands as much as I can. But holding that call with gloves on is going to change. Something just that simple. But if you think about it, if you've messed with anything audio, like a microphone, if it's on a tripod and something touches the tripod, you get the vibration in your sound that's transferring through that tripod or through that camera. It's no different with a turkey call. Whatever you're holding that turkey call with, if you change that, it's either going to become more rigid and transfer more easily, or you're going to dampen that and then kind of restrict some of that sound coming out just by wearing gloves. So that's also another scenario there that changes the sound of your call. The other thing there is tuning your calls, and it's actually pretty vital that you understand how to tune a call. And with box calls and stuff like that, we'll go through that in another episode on box call fundamentals next week. But in terms of a pot call, whatever call we pick, understanding how this thing works. And again, this is a musical instrument. If you pick up a guitar and you try playing the guitar, but you're not using both hands, it doesn't sound right, because the fundamentals there of playing a guitar isn't correct. You got to use both hands there to get the right sound. With a turkey call, depending on where you're calling at is going to change that. And the way a turkey call is actually designed, and a lot of people don't know this, but a turkey call has a soundboard inside. There's actually another chamber in here, and the way that the sound chamber works of this call, it has to vibrate off of that soundboard to produce the call that you want to achieve. Well, that soundboard changes how the sound vibrates off of that soundboard changes where you play your call. And you hear people say all the time, well, the sweet spot of that call is right here. Well, that call has a sweet spot because it's bouncing off of the soundboard and going through the sound chamber a certain way, which produces a certain pitch and tone that you like. Now, a pot call is truly designed to be higher pitch the farther you get to the outside of the call. The closer you get to the middle of the call, the duller that sound gets, or the more rasp the sound gets. So when we look at this, and this is the same call, this is a Hickory Striker, and if I just drag the striker on the outside of the call, see how high pitched that is? I'm on the outside. Now listen when I get to the inside. It's duller, higher pitch. Got a lot higher pitch than what you do in the middle. Now, there's some things there that can affect if I'm trying to achieve certain calls, like if I'm trying to, try kiki or something like that on a pot call. That's a high pitched call. I want to, be on the outside. If I'm trying to gobbler yelp, Jake yelp, something like that, you're going to be closer to the inside. And we're going to cover that in a video after box call fundamentals. So any pot call is that way. If I'll pick up this cherry call again. If I start on the outside, high pitch, inside. You can tell a big difference on that one. Okay? And then, again, I'm just trying to drag this. I'm not actually trying to make a call. I'm just trying to show you the different tones. So there's a lot of different things there that change the acoustics of a turkey call. And everybody should be aware of that in terms of how they want their call to actually sound. And you need to experiment with that stuff. And if you're looking for a call and you've got, and if you don't know, maybe you're new to turkey hunting, or maybe you've been turkey hunting for years and you didn't know that, those different wood species play such a huge factor into that. When you buy a call, ask the call builder, whether it's me or if it's, some other company out there, ask and say, hey, I'm looking for something that has this sound to it. And that call builder should be able to point you in the right direction to a call to make the sound that you're trying to achieve. For example, Matt Dell's one of our pro staff, and when we build his calls, he loves a call that has a very high front end to it, and that's something that I know, and when I design his calls, I'm trying to achieve that high front end for him because I know he likes that with a good roll. He doesn't like something that's got a duller front end, like you heard in that cherry box call or in that cedar box call. So knowing what you want to achieve is definitely decided in a lot of different factors, and from how you run the call in terms of how you place your striker on there, if you're wearing gloves, if you're not wearing gloves, and then the biggest one being wood species, and those are all massive things there that can affect the sound that you're getting out of your turkey call. So I hope this helps, and something that kind of breaks that down and helps you decide how you choose your next call. One thing I do want to kind of point out is hopefully you guys go down and hit the subscribe button. And if you do, make sure you jump over to our Facebook page, give us a like on there. We actually have a giveaway going on right now to win a box, or to win this walnut glass call, and shirts, decals, mouth calls, stuff like that. And all you got to do is share the Facebook post and hit subscribe and comment on that Facebook post. So jump over and do that, and we'll see you guys back next week right here. See you guys later.